Chapter 1. Nowhere Left to Fall. The Los Angeles night was thick with the kind of heat that made the asphalt shimmer even after sunset. Xavier Reyes sat on the curb outside a shuttered taqueria on Skid Row, the neon from a distant billboard flickering across his face like faulty memories. 28 years old, and he felt like he'd lived 3 lifetimes too many. His beat-up '09 Honda Civic, his last possession, was parked illegally 2 blocks away. 1 tire flat, registration expired, contents reduced to a duffel bag of clothes that smelled like defeat. He stared at the half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey in his hand. It wasn't even good enough to numb the ache anymore. It just reminded him how far he'd fallen. 6 years ago, he'd been the hotshot co-founder of Pulse, an app that promised to revolutionize mental health tracking with AI. Investors threw money at him. Parties in Hollywood Hills. A sister who believed in him more than anyone. Then his partner, best friend since college, stole the code. Sold it to a bigger firm and left Xavier holding the lawsuit bag. The money dried up. The sister, Elena, died in a car crash on the 405 during one of Xavier's all-nighters, arguing with lawyers. He blamed himself. Still did. Every honk of traffic sounded like her last scream. Now, evicted from his last couch surf spot 2 days ago. Phone dead. Bank account negative. Nothing left to lose meant freedom in a twisted way, or so people said. Xavier wasn't sure. Tonight, the thought kept circling. Walk into the ocean at Venice. Let the waves decide. Or maybe just keep walking until the city swallowed him. He stood, legs unsteady, and started toward the beach anyway. The walk took him past graffiti-covered walls, tents lining sidewalks, the low hum of the city that never slept, but never quite lived either, past Pershing Square, through downtown's glass towers mocking him from above. Hours blurred. Eventually, the salt air hit him. Venice Beach at 2 a.m. was quiet except for the crash of waves and distant laughter from bonfires. He found a bench near the boardwalk, collapsed onto it. The Pacific stretched black and endless. He pulled out the whiskey again, took a swig, then set it down. Hands shaking, he reached into his pocket for the last thing he owned of value. Elena's silver necklace, a small pendant shaped like a heartbeat line. He clutched it, eyes burning. That's when he heard it. Sharp voices. A woman's defiant shout cut off by a thud. Down the boardwalk, under a flickering street lamp, 3 shadows circled a lone figure. A woman back against a mural-covered wall. Stance wide like she knew how to fight but was outnumbered. One guy had a knife glinting. Another grabbed her wrist. The third laughed low. Xavier didn't think. He just moved. "Hey!" His voice cracked from disuse, but it carried. He jogged forward, heart slamming. "Back off." The trio turned. Knife guy sneered. "Walk away, homeless. This ain't your business." Xavier kept coming. He had nothing to lose, literally. That made him dangerous in a way they didn't expect. The woman locked eyes with him for a split second, green, fierce, surprised. Knife guy lunged. Xavier dodged, grabbed the wrist, twisted hard. Bone cracked. The knife clattered. The other 2 rushed. Xavier took a punch to the ribs. Pain exploded, but he swung back, connecting with a jaw. The fight was messy, desperate. He wasn't trained. He was just angry at the world. One guy bolted. Knife guy clutched his arm, cursing, then ran too. The last one hesitated, saw Xavier's wild eyes, and followed. Breathing hard, Xavier turned to the woman. She was already straightening her leather jacket, wiping blood from a split lip. Tall, maybe 5'9", dark wavy hair falling over one shoulder, expensive boots, ripped jeans, a hoodie that looked designer despite the street grime. Not from around here, not this part anyway. "You okay?" he rasped. She studied him like he was a puzzle. "Yeah, thanks to you." Her voice was steady, low, with a hint of an accent he couldn't place. Maybe East Coast Polish over California sun. "You didn't have to do that." "Wasn't thinking." He shrugged, ribs throbbing. "Looked like you needed backup." She almost smiled. "I had it handled, mostly." She glanced at the dropped knife, then back at him. "What's your name?" "Xavier." He didn't ask hers. Didn't want to know. This was a moment, not a connection. "Natasha," she said anyway. "You live around here?" He laughed, short, bitter. "Something like that." She tilted her head. "You don't look like the type to pick fights for strangers." "I don't." He stepped back. "Just wrong place, wrong time. For both of us." She reached into her pocket, pulled out a wad of cash, hundreds easily. held it out. Take this, for the trouble. Xavier stared at it, then at her. I didn't do it for money. I know. She pressed it into his hand anyway. Her fingers brushed his, warm, steady. But you look like you could use it. He wanted to refuse. Pride screamed it. But reality was louder. He closed his fist around the bills. Thanks. She nodded like a deal was done. Then she turned toward the parking lot where a sleek black SUV idled, driver waiting. She paused, looked back. You sure you're okay? Yeah. Lie. Get some rest, Xavier. She disappeared into the vehicle. Taillights faded down Ocean Avenue. He stood there a long time, cash burning in his pocket. The whiskey bottle still on the bench. The necklace in his other hand. For the first time in months, something felt different. Not hope. Not yet. But a crack in the darkness. A reminder that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't invisible yet. He walked back to his car, ribs aching but steps a little lighter. Tomorrow could wait. Tonight he wasn't ending it. Chapter 2. The Girl Who Shouldn't Exist. Natasha Kane stepped out of the black SUV and into the cool Malibu morning air. The ocean breeze carrying the faint scent of salt and eucalyptus. The Kane estate sprawled behind her, white stone walls, infinity pool overlooking the Pacific, security cameras discreetly hidden in palm trees. It was beautiful. It was also a cage. At 24, she had everything most people dreamed of. Trust fund, private art studio, invitations to every gallery opening in Los Angeles. But her father, Victor Kane, built Kane Tech into a multi-billion-dollar AI empire by controlling every variable, code, competitors, even his only daughter. Lately, that control included talks of an arranged engagement to Ethan Caldwell, heir to a rival cybersecurity firm. A strategic alliance, Victor called it. Natasha called it a merger she never signed up for. She slipped into her studio at the edge of the property, a converted guest house with floor-to-ceiling windows and paint-splattered floors. Canvases leaned against walls, abstract storms of color, street scenes from her secret nighttime escapes into the city. Last night's mural on Venice Beach had been interrupted by those three men. She touched the bruise on her lip, still tender. Then she thought of the stranger who had stepped in without hesitation. Xavier. She hadn't expected to care. People in her world calculated every move. He had acted on instinct, no agenda, no expectation of reward, until she forced the cash on him. His eyes when he looked at the bills, not gratitude exactly, more like resignation mixed with something raw. She opened her laptop and pulled up the security. Footage her driver had quietly obtained from nearby cameras. Grainy but clear enough. There he was. Ragged hoodie, determined stride, taking hits without flinching. She paused on his face under the street lamp. Tired, but alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. She needed to find him. By afternoon, she was back in the city. Dressed down, oversized hoodie, baseball cap, sunglasses. She drove her own car, a nondescript gray sedan she kept hidden. From her father's tracking team to downtown LA. She started at the boardwalk, asking vendors if they'd seen a guy matching his description. Most shrugged. One older man selling pretzels remembered. The fighter? Yeah, he comes around sometimes. Sleeps in that old Civic a few blocks over, I think. She found the car near an abandoned lot. Flat tire, dust-covered windows. No one inside. She left a note under the wiper. Coffee? Same place we met tomorrow, 10 a.m. In. The next morning, she waited at a small, no-name cafe on the edge of Venice. Wooden tables, mismatched chairs. The kind of place that didn't care who you were. She ordered black coffee and sat by the window, sketching in a notebook. Quick lines of a man fighting shadows. He showed up at 10:05. Xavier hesitated at the door, scanning the room. When he saw her, his expression tightened. Surprise, then wariness. He wore the same hoodie, fresh bruise on his cheekbone. He approached slowly, like he might bolt any second. You didn't have to come, she said as he sat across from her. Didn't have to leave a note either, he replied, voice low. Figured I'd see what you wanted. She pushed a coffee toward him. Just to say thank you properly, and ask if you're okay. He looked at the cup, then at her. I'm fine, you? Better than last night. She studied him. You don't talk much, do you? Not when I don't have anything worth saying. A small smile tugged at her lips. Fair enough, but you saved me. That counts for something. He shrugged. Anyone would have. No, she said quietly. Most people walk by. Silence stretched between them. Outside, traffic hummed. Inside, the cafe felt smaller. Why are you really here? He finally asked. She hesitated. Because last night was the first real thing that's happened to me in a long time. Everyone around me. It's all planned, controlled. You weren't part of any plan. He met her eyes, green meeting hazel. And for a moment, the guarded wall cracked. I'm not someone you want in your life, Natasha. Trust me, you don't know what I want. I know enough, he stood. Thanks for the coffee. Take care. He turned to leave. She reached out, fingers brushing his sleeve. Wait. She pulled a small card from her pocket. No name, just a number. If you ever need anything at all, call me. He looked at the card, then at her. Something flickered in his expression. Maybe curiosity, maybe doubt. He took it, slipped it into his pocket without a word, and walked out. Natasha watched him go, heart beating faster than it should. Across the city, in a glass tower downtown, Victor Kane reviewed security reports on his tablet. A flagged alert. His daughter had been followed to Venice Beach the previous night. Another, she had visited downtown this morning. He tapped the screen, pulling up a still image from cafe surveillance. A man in a hoodie sitting across from Natasha. Victor zoomed in on the face, unfamiliar, rough, not part of their world. He leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. Find out who he is, he told his assistant over the intercom. Quietly. Chapter 3, Dangerous Sparks. The days after the cafe meeting blurred into a quiet routine for Xavier. He used part of the cash Natasha gave him to fix the flat tire on his Civic and buy a few basics. Food, a cheap burner phone, clean clothes. He found day labor gigs, moving boxes at a warehouse in Inglewood, washing dishes at a late-night diner. Nothing glamorous, but it kept him moving, kept the darkness at bay a little longer. He told himself he wouldn't call the number on the card. She was from another world. Malibu mansions, private drivers, futures mapped out by boardrooms. He was from the cracks in the sidewalk. Yet every night when the city quieted, he pulled the card out, stared at it, then put it away. Natasha, meanwhile, couldn't stop thinking about him. She started slipping away more, often telling her father she was at yoga or gallery events, then driving into the city alone. She painted murals in hidden alleys, places where the city's pulse felt real. One night she chose a wall near the arts district, bold strokes of blue and gold, a figure breaking chains against a skyline. When she finished at 3 a.m., she stepped back, spray paint on her hands, and felt alive. She didn't expect to see him there. Xavier had been walking, unable to sleep. He rounded the corner and froze. Under the glow of a single streetlight, Natasha stood in front of her fresh mural, hood up, mask pulled down around her neck. She looked up, startled, then smiled, small, genuine. You following me now? He asked, half joking, half serious. Maybe you're following me, she replied, wiping paint from her cheek. This city is smaller than people think. They stood in silence for a moment, the mural towering behind her like a confession. It's beautiful, he said finally, nodding at the wall. What's it mean? Freedom, she answered simply, the kind most people never get to chase. He looked at the figure in the painting, strong, breaking free, and something in his chest tightened. I used to think I had that. Then life happened. She tilted her head. Tell me about it. He hesitated. Then, against every instinct, he started talking. About the app he built, the betrayal by his partner, the endless court dates, the night Elena's car spun out on wet pavement while he was arguing on the phone. His voice stayed steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight. Natasha listened without interrupting. When he finished, she stepped closer. I'm sorry. That's heavy. Yeah, he looked away. That's why I don't do this, getting close to people. I ruin things. You didn't ruin anything tonight, she said softly. You shared something real. They walked after that, slowly through the empty streets, talking about dreams they'd buried. She told him about hating the boardroom expectations, the pressure to be perfect. He admitted he still dreamed of building something again, something honest. Dawn broke over the city as they reached Venice Beach. They sat on the sand, waves gentle, sky turning pink. Natasha turned to him. I like being around you, Xavier. You're not pretending to be anything you're not. He met her gaze. That's because I have nothing left to pretend with. She reached out, her hand covering his on the sand. Maybe that's exactly what I need. For the first time in years, he didn't pull away. But across town, Victor Kane's investigators had been busy. Photos arrived in his email. Natasha painting in the arts district. Xavier appearing nearby. The two of them walking together at dawn. Victor stared at the images on his large monitor. His jaw tightened. This wasn't coincidence. This was a complication. He picked up the phone. I want a full background on the, man, everything, and keep eyes on my daughter, discreetly. He paused, looking at the photo of Xavier's face, bruised but determined. And find out what he wants, Victor added. Because no one gets close to my family without a reason. Back on the beach, Natasha and Xavier watched the sun rise fully. She leaned her head on his shoulder just for a second. He let her. The spark had caught, and neither knew how fast it would burn. Chapter 4. Ghosts in the Rear View. Xavier spent the next few days trying to convince himself the beach sunrise with Natasha had been a one-time thing, a moment of weakness. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her hand on his, the way the light caught her green eyes, the quiet way she listened without judgment. It scared him more than the emptiness ever had. He took more labor jobs, construction cleanup in Hollywood, hauling trash from film sets. The physical work helped. It drowned out the thoughts. At night, he parked his Civic in different spots around the city. Under a bridge near the LA River one evening, a quiet street in Echo Park the next. He avoided Venice Beach, afraid he might run into her again. Or worse, afraid he might hope to. Natasha, though, wasn't one to wait for fate. She kept her escapes quiet, slipping out after family dinners or when her father was in late meetings. She drove to places she thought he might be. The diner where he'd once mentioned washing dishes. The warehouse district in Inglewood. She didn't stalk him. She simply hoped the city would bring them together again. It did on a rainy Thursday evening. Xavier was walking back from a job, soaked through, when he saw her car, a gray sedan, pulled over near MacArthur Park. The hood was up, steam rising. She stood beside it, phone in hand, looking frustrated but calm. He almost kept walking. Then he stopped. Need help? He called over the rain. She looked up, surprised, turning to relief. Xavier, of course it's you. He jogged over, peered under the hood. Radiator hose looks split. Not hard to fix if you have a clamp or tape. I have nothing, she admitted. I thought I could handle it myself. He smiled faintly, the first real one in days. Come on, my car's a few blocks away. I'll give you a ride somewhere dry. She hesitated only a second, then nodded. They drove in silence at first, rain drumming on the roof. The Civic smelled faintly of old coffee and damp clothes. But she didn't seem to mind. She glanced at the dashboard, the cracked vinyl, the small photo of a young woman taped near the speedometer. Elena, smiling. Your sister? Natasha asked gently. Yeah. His voice was quiet. Elena, she was everything. Natasha didn't push. Instead, she shared her own piece. My mom left when I was 12. Said she couldn't live in Victor's shadow anymore. I haven't seen her since. Dad never talks about it, just works harder. I guess that's how he copes. Xavier glanced at her. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me who I am. She looked out the window at the blurred city lights. But it also made me afraid of getting too close to anyone. Everyone leaves eventually. Not everyone, he said, surprising himself. She turned to him. You left the cafe that day. Walked away. I was trying to protect you. From what, you? He pulled into a small parking lot near a 24-hour coffee shop. They sat there, engine idling, rain softening. I used to have dreams, he said after a long pause. Big ones. The app was supposed to help people like me, people who feel invisible. Then it all fell apart. Elena died because I wasn't there. I keep thinking if I'd been different, better. Natasha reached over, her hand on his arm. You didn't cause the accident. And you didn't deserve what your partner did. You're still here, Xavier. That's more than a lot of people can say. He looked at her hand, then at her face. The rain had plastered her hair to her cheeks, but she looked more real than anyone he'd ever known. I don't want to drag you into my mess, he whispered. You're not dragging me. I'm choosing to be here. The words hung between them. Slowly, he leaned in. She met him halfway. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like testing fragile ground. Then deeper, hungry for something neither had felt in years. Rain pounded harder, but inside the car, the world felt small and safe. When they pulled apart, both breathing unevenly, she smiled against his lips. "I've wanted to do that since the beach." "Me too," he admitted. They talked for hours after that, parked in the lot, sharing stories, laughing quietly at the absurdity of two people from opposite ends of the city finding each other in the rain. She told him about her secret art shows, the ones she never invited her father to. He told her about the late night ideas he still sketched on napkins, apps that could actually help, not just sell data. Eventually, the rain eased. She had to get back before her father noticed her absence too long. "Promise me something," she said as she opened the door. "Don't disappear again." He nodded. "I won't, not this time." She kissed him once more, quick, certain, then stepped out into the night. Xavier watched her walk to a rideshare she'd called, waited until the car pulled away safely. Then he drove back to his spot under the bridge, heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. For the first time since Elena's funeral, he felt something like hope. Fragile but real. But hope has a way of drawing attention. Victor Kane received another update that night. Photos, the gray sedan broken down, Xavier's Civic pulling up, the two of them inside for hours. Then Natasha leaving in a rideshare. Victor set the tablet down carefully. His expression remained calm, but his mind was already moving pieces on an invisible board. He pressed the intercom. "Schedule a meeting with our security team first thing tomorrow, and pull everything we have on Xavier. Reyes, I want to know who he really is and what he's after." He leaned back, staring at the city lights beyond the glass. "No one touches my daughter without consequences." Chapter 5, The Offer. Victor Kane did not believe in coincidences. By the end of the week, a thick folder lay on his desk. Xavier Reyes, age 28, former co-founder of Pulse AI, bankrupt after a co-founder embezzlement scandal. No criminal record, but a string of unpaid debts and a single traffic citation from 3 years ago. The sister's death certificate was clipped to the back. Elena Reyes, 25, single vehicle accident on the 405. Cause driver error, excessive speed, possible distraction. Victor read it twice. Then he closed the folder and stared at the city from his office window. This man was not a gold digger or a plant. He was broken, and broken people could be useful if handled correctly. He made a call. 2 days later, Xavier received a text on his burner phone from an unknown number. "Mr. Reyes, Victor Kane would like to meet. Kane Tech headquarters, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Dress appropriately. Assistant to Mr. Kane." Xavier stared at the screen for a long minute. He knew the name everyone in tech knew. Victor Kane, the man who turned AI diagnostics into a billion-dollar empire, and now he wanted to meet a nobody sleeping in his car. He almost deleted it. Then he thought of Natasha, of the way she'd looked at him in the rain, like he was worth something. He replied, "I'll be there." The next morning, he borrowed clean clothes from a former co-worker, dark button-down, slacks that almost fit. He shaved, combed his hair, and drove the Civic to the gleaming glass tower in Silicon Beach. Security eyed him but waved him through after checking ID. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt endless. When the doors opened, a polished assistant led him to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Victor Kane waited alone at the head of the table. Tall, silver-haired, sharp suit, no smile. "Mr. Reyes," Victor said, gesturing to a chair. "Sit." Xavier sat, hands steady on the table despite the knot in his stomach. "You've been spending time with my daughter," Victor began, voice even. "I don't like surprises, so let's be direct. What do you want from Natasha?" "Nothing," Xavier answered honestly. "It just happened." Victor studied him. "People don't just happen into my family's life. But I see you're not after money." "At least not obviously." Xavier stayed silent. "I have a proposition," Victor continued. "Kane Tech is facing competition. A rival firm, Nexus Dynamics, is developing similar tech. They've been aggressive. Too aggressive. I need someone with your background to observe, infiltrate if necessary, provide intel. In return, I clear your debts, give you a salary and a fresh start. And I look the other way regarding your time with Natasha." Xavier felt the weight of the words. "You're asking me to spy. I'm asking you to help protect what I've built, what my daughter will inherit one day. You have skills. Use them." Xavier thought of the nights in his car, the hunger, the shame. He thought of Natasha's hand in his. And if I say no? Victor leaned forward. Then you walk out that door and you never see her again. My security will make sure of it. The room felt smaller. Xavier swallowed. I need time to think. You have until tonight. 8 o'clock. Text the number that contacted you. Victor stood, ending the meeting. One more thing. Natasha doesn't know about this. Keep it that way. Xavier left the building in a daze. The sun was too bright, the traffic too loud. He drove to a quiet spot near the beach and sat on the hood of his car, staring at the waves. By evening, he still hadn't decided. Then his phone buzzed. Natasha. Meet me at the pier? I miss you. He stared at the message. Then typed back, on my way. The Santa Monica pier was alive with lights and laughter when he arrived. Natasha waited near the end, leaning on the railing, wind in her hair. She smiled when she saw him, bright, unguarded. They walked together, sharing cotton candy she insisted on buying. She talked about a new mural idea, about wanting to show him her studio someday. He listened, trying to hold on to the moment. At the edge of the pier, with the ocean dark below, she turned to him. I've been thinking, she said, about us. I don't care about the differences. I just want this, whatever it is, to keep going. Xavier looked at her, heart heavy. I want that too. She stepped closer, kissing him softly. The kiss deepened, her arms around his neck, his hands on her waist. For a few minutes, the world narrowed to just them. The salt air, the distant music, the warmth between them. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. Stay with me tonight, my place. Dad's out of town. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay. They drove to her Malibu house in her car. The estate was quiet, staff gone for the night. She led him inside, past marble floors and modern art, to her room overlooking the ocean. They didn't speak much after that. Clothes fell away slowly, reverently. Their touches were careful at first, then urgent. In the moonlight filtering through the windows, they found each other, passionate, tender, a release of everything they'd held back. She whispered his name like a promise. He held her like she was the only solid thing left in his world. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, her head on his chest. I love you, she murmured, half asleep. He kissed her forehead. I love you too. But as she drifted off, Xavier stared at the ceiling. The offer from Victor echoed in his mind. 8 o'clock had passed. He hadn't answered yet. He slipped out of bed quietly, found his phone in his pocket. Typed one word to the assistant's number. Yes. Then he returned to her side, pulling her close. Guilt twisted in his gut, but so did determination. He'd do this job, get the fresh start, prove he could be more than broken. For her, outside, the ocean whispered against the shore. The night felt full of possibilities and hidden dangers.